want better for our people, and I want to see in my lifetime Africans coming together and building our continent instead of immigrating or putting ourselves at risk, our own lives at risk, in order to cross a desert or to cross a sea to find greener pastures. I think if I can convince just a few people to build where they are and not risk their lives fleeing their situation, I will feel accomplished, because I have had to report in so many horror stories of our people that, lost their lives while they are on a journey to go somewhere else because they thought the situation would be better somewhere else. I will do what needs to be done today so that tomorrow it's not going to be my child, it's not going to be my grandchild that has to risk their life to leave this situation. Someone has to stand up. Hi, I'm Wongel Zelalem. I am a content creator originally from Ethiopia, currently living in Nairobi. I create content for Africans by an African, and I am passionate about telling our story, and I believe that we need to tell our stories ourselves because narrative matters, and we need to tell it in our own voice, in our own way, and that is what I do. So how I started initially talking about these things, first let me start from why I cared or when I started caring, right? Growing up or in school, you're not really focused on outside of what's happening outside of yourself, because you have so much. You feel like you're dealing with so much in high school, or you're dealing with so much in college or university. It's right now, maybe with TikTok and Twitter, it's different. But back in the days, Facebook is the most prominent. Like in high school for me, it was Facebook. Even that we used once in a while. So it was not that big of a deal, right? So we didn't have access to information as much as this. I'm not saying we didn't, but you have to look really hard for it, right? So I knew that we have issues in Africa or in my country, but it was never like the main purpose of my life or the focus for me. It first started becoming or feeling like that when I got pregnant. I know, but I have to be honest, because when I got pregnant, it felt like there's someone else I cared for more than me. And so I was like, this world is so bad. How do I raise this little thing in this world? And so I got scared and I wanted to find out, right? Like I wanted to know how to make it better. Or I was even thinking, do I film lots of videos and then save it, and then when he grows up, he's gonna watch it and he knows like not to fall for this agenda or this, or get lied to, or somebody tells him that like you're not beautiful, you're not handsome because you're this way, or right? Like what we see happening to kids as they grow up, and what people tell them how they are, or in our society we know how it is, and you feel for that like person, like that baby. So when I got pregnant, I started watching. One, I had time. As I said earlier in my life, I just was busy with my own life, never really looked outside of myself. It was just like me, what's happening to me, this and that, right? But once it stopped like just being about me, I started thinking about what kind of world am I living for the next generation. Now, in extension, outside of now my own baby, it became like other babies. Like somehow the caring trigger just was amplified for some reason. I don't know, maybe the experts might tell us when you're pregnant or you give birth, something happens to your body or mind. I don't know what that is, because this is a side story, but like another thing, I used to love horror movies, right? Crazy about them. And then after I became a mom, I can't stand horror movies. I don't do that anymore. I don't know what changed. So that's why I'm saying I'm not sure if there's like a chemical thing that changes you. I have no idea. But I really wanted to leave this world better than I found it. So, and then when I had time, it's like I sit and watch documentaries, the books I read, the shows I watch, YouTube. I want to shout out to YouTube because most of my information came from YouTube. I would do, and when you get into that rabbit hole, one story after the other, they feed you exactly what type of content you like. And for me, it was more like how Africans are seen in this world, or our history, or the Black experience in America. Those were the stories that like I was consuming a lot. So I realized like the world that we're living in is not really fair towards us at the very least, right? So when I realized that, I'm like, what can I do about it? At first, I did not think about YouTube or creating a platform at all, because I'm like, who am I to talk about this, like, at all? But I'll have to give a shout out to my husband, even though I don't talk about him a lot. He's a private person, but I'll just say this because yeah, he played a big role in this. Whenever he comes home, as soon as he comes home, I'm like, I watched this. Did you know this used to happen? Did you know this is what is happening? Do you know this happened today? Like, just bombard him with that information. So I guess one day he was like, by the way, why don't you just create a YouTube channel, and whatever you're telling me, now you can go and say it somewhere else, because also he was tired of just hearing about my stories daily. I feel him. So once he suggested that, I was like, as I can just open it, like I didn't understand how exactly YouTube worked. So I did my research and I'm like, oh, it's pretty simple. So I created a channel, and then I started talking about things I cared about on the channel. That's how I started, basically. Long story short, I wanted a better, future for the next generation. And I thought if I can do something like this, like talk about it, so that someone can be, can be influenced through that, or be aware of what's really going on in this world, it can actually change somebody's life. I remember there was a time I was just sitting in my living room watching a documentary, and it was talking about how doctors used to practice, opening up women, Black women, trying to figure out how to do their job right, but on Black women, because they used to claim that Black women can tolerate pain. They don't feel as much pain as white women. And, they would practice that on the Black women without even giving them any painkiller or anesthesia. So that's how they came up with a lot of tools that we use right now when we go to the gynecologist as women. And when you hear about how in America, for example, the Tulsa massacre is what it's called, and they went and demolished or finished the Black people that were there because they were thriving. They were getting wealthier and wealthier, and this was after slavery ended. Or when I'm watching videos on how our people were being treated. Even now, you would think, since colonization has passed and, we're mostly free countries, nothing is happening really. But behind the scenes, there's quite a bit that's happening. I just covered a story about sterilization, forced sterilization. There are so many women that report in Kenya and South Africa. They go to the doctor believing that they're getting a treatment for, it can be anything, right? But then they sterilize them without their knowledge. And then they can't have a baby anymore. And this is on the news. It's not conspiracy anymore. Once upon a time, it was a conspiracy. But then now it's not, because Kenya courts just a few months ago ruled against 2 NGOs that coerced 4 Kenyan women into sterilizing themselves. And these are NGOs that are there to help the people of Kenya. So when you see stories like that, or the South African woman that went to the doctor to get checked, and then he took out her uterus, and she didn't know. She's been trying to have a baby, trying, and then eventually, when she got a scan done, she doesn't even have a uterus. It's the doctor, because she has a firstborn. So it's not like the uterus was never there. It was there. So systematically, whether we see it or not, there's a lot that we're going through. And if somebody doesn't talk about it, the next person will go through the same thing and suffer in silence or cry about it, and they don't get the platform, and that's it. Their life or their dream of becoming a mom or having a family has just ended. But if someone were to talk about it and you realize, okay, there's ways that you can prevent that happening to you, or there's ways where you can do A, B, C, D, then you do it. So I think information is really important, and people tend to look down on it because they're like, okay, you go do the work. Why just talk about it? But it starts somewhere. Like I had to watch someone to be empowered in order to do the things that I'm doing right now. Someone out there needs the information. Just because you have it, because you have Twitter or you have you follow these articles, doesn't necessarily mean the majority of the people have access to this information. And the more we talk about it, and the more of us are more open with it, anything and everything that you feel like is your purpose in life. Not everything that moves you moves me, or what moves me moves you. And there's a reason for that, because it's a balance, because you're supposed to fill in a gap. I'm supposed to fill in a different gap. So talking about it is extremely important, hence why those specific videos that I watched or books that I read empowered me or opened me up into having more difficult conversations and not feeling like, it's a repetitive thing. It's really not that. You might feel that way at that point, but it's really not, because I get feedback from many people how like they've never heard about this and then they heard it through me. That's like a privilege. I see that as like mission accomplished, because that's the reason why I started this in the first place. When I first started my channel, it was very, very hard for me. Like, it was an internal struggle, because when you are first starting anything, you're like, you have to begin as a dummy, right? Like, you're just, that's a trial. That's, you're learning new things, how to edit, how to film, what lighting you need to use, how, to talk to the camera. It's, all these things are new, right? But the most difficult one, or the challenging one for me, was what would people say, especially the people I knew. I was so afraid. Like, I didn't want people to hear about my channel for a long time. The people that I'm close with, or the people that I know, I just felt this sort of what will they think? What will they say? I don't know why, but I put a lot of weight on what would people say. Maybe low-key, like deep down, I thought it would discourage me if I hear them talk about me, like in a not so good way. You know what I mean? Like, maybe, oh, you're not good, because you have insecurities when you first start, because you're looking at yourself in the camera and you're like, you start picking out things. You're like, do I always look like this? Or the way you speak, I couldn't stand the way I talked. Like, I'm gonna be honest, now I'm used to it. But initially I was like, wait, I talk like this? Because the camera and the audio is just different than how you hear yourself. So I had a lot of insecurities when I first started. And then I had to push myself. And at some point I thought I was gonna quit, because I was so embarrassed. I don't know why. I need to dig deep to understand, but I just don't want people to know. But then I am so proud of myself, to be honest. I pushed through it, and I continued to post videos to talk about the things that I cared about at that point. And so I believe it ended up being successful. The first video I did, I believe, if I'm not wrong, I'll have to go back and check, is about the Aksumite dynasty. Either that, and the Aksumite dynasty, or it was about comparing the European Union with African Union. That was the video. And it took me so long to film it because I kept like overthinking it. I was like, that was not good enough, but then I ended up posting it. To be honest, I don't think I even removed that video. I think it's still up there. And even though you can see I'm a bit awkward in front of the camera, I'm stuttering, and it doesn't look natural, but I still am very, very happy about that video, because if I didn't make that video then, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And I think all of us need to accept that when we first start doing something, we're always gonna start off as like a clean slate, which means you have to be okay looking like a dummy, because it's fine. It's not a bad word. When you were born, you didn't know anything, right? Like, you had to consume from your parents, TV, or school, your teacher. That's how you were able to understand, oh, you're not supposed to put candles in your mouth, for example. We would put everything in our mouth, right? Simple things like that. So the only way you will know how to be good at something is if you're okay starting out from zero. And I think I'm actually really happy that I was able to force myself, regardless of my insecurities, to now be able to do what I do, and like full time even. In Ethiopia or in Africa, most of the time, girls are not given the same amount of attention, maybe, or we're given a different kind of attention, because our culture, it's not bad. For me, I love culture. Let me just put that in there. I love culture. I think it's extremely important, especially in 2023 with everything that is going on. I rather our culture than any Western, ideology. Let's just say that. But culture has its good and bad as well. I'll admit to that. And culturally, mostly, when we're being raised, our boys are being raised differently from our girls. Boys are being told they can go out there and play football and come home and just expect food to be there. But the girls, they're like, come with mommy, let's make this, let me show you how this is done. And, most of the time, especially in the rural areas, not urbanized areas, that is what happens. So when these kids grow up, the boy now becomes a man, he has a job, he's now the provider, but then now the girl that was raised differently, even though they were raised in the same household, now is going to be a housewife and depend on that person. There's there's nothing wrong with being housewife. My mom is a housewife, and I think she did a wonderful job. I think it's the most, one of the most hardest jobs there is out there, because of everything that they need to do. But it should be by choice, not because you have no other choice. You have to do that, right? That's what I'm talking about. So, but for me, it was different. My environment is different. When I grew up, firstly, I was raised in the capital city. So it's different experience from someone that was being raised in those rural areas or different areas that are not really, like, school is not that accessible, right? There are areas, unfortunately, right now in 2023, there are areas where school is not that accessible for our children, which is very, very sad, but something that we can work on one thing at a time. And so for me, I was raised in the capital city, which is Addis Ababa. And secondly, my family, my parents were very intentional, especially my dad would tell me that when you grow up, you can be anything. Or I would say something like, I want to be an astronaut. And he's like, you can be, like, it is so possible. And he would bring me books of all this, about space. And so that encouraged me. That, like, I was like, oh, okay, it's possible. So I never for a second thought, just because I am a woman or like I'm a girl, I can't dream big, I can't do what I want to do. It was never in my vocabulary, because, like, that's not how I was raised. I was very, very, very fortunate enough in that way. So obviously nurture matters, and I got that from my parents. So I was able to pursue school and then, uni and graduate and all. I got to this point because of how I was raised. It was never an issue. It was never like, you're a girl, so go to the kitchen. I've never been told that, but there are people that are actually being taught to do that. Like, you're born, because you see, the goal is you grow up, you become a woman and become a wife. So you need to know the wifely duties then. Because if that's your job, of course they're right in a way. When you look at it, if that's what you're meant to do. If that's the only job that you're supposed to do, you have to be good at it. But then where's the choice? Other girls didn't have that choice. So they end up in abusive relationships. They don't leave that house because they don't think like there's any other way out, because they depend fully and wholly on their spouse. So, but when you choose to be with your spouse because you love them, is different from when you're afraid for your life, but also you don't know what you'll do if you go out there. It's a different one. But as I said, I'm very fortunate to have been raised in a way where I'm given, the option to decide what I want when I grow up. I consider myself a Pan-African. And, with being a Pan-African, there are things that you have to maybe accept, which is love every culture for what it is. But I believe you don't have to take in everything 100%. Like, this is a personal thing. I'm pretty sure other people might disagree, but for me, it's an individual thing because my morals and values might not be the same as yours, and that is perfectly okay. Okay, maybe it's not perfectly okay if we're living in a society, but at the same time, we all have free will. We all can raise our kids the way we want to, but there's always a limit, right? Like, you cannot pass that, otherwise even the government can get involved. So we have that. We know there's a boundary. We know there's something that we should not be crossing. But at the same time, for me personally, I would say 80% of my culture, for example, I'm very happy with, I'm proud to represent. But there are some things for me, I look at it safety-wise. If it's going to affect the health and safety of the person, I would disagree. For example, female genital mutilation. I don't agree with that. I understand it's part of the culture, and it's not just in my country. This happens not just in Africa. Even I have heard that some, Middle Eastern countries practice that as well. That is their culture. They might get offended when you tell them this is not good. But I'm not saying this is not good because I am saying it from my point of view. I'm saying that because of science, you are quite literally mutilating the girl and you're hurting her in the long run. So if we're going to affect our children and for the rest of their lives, this is something that we need to discuss. This is not something I'm willing to laugh about, or I'm willing to say, okay, as long as you're happy with it, because it is impacting the person for the rest of their lives. And I think we should be open for the discussion. We should have the conversation of what's the alternative. Like, first, let's understand why you're doing this. People online have different perspectives and different opinions. And I have a voice as much as the other person has a voice. But the difference is I'm using my voice to talk about the things that I care about. Some people might feel strongly about what I'm saying and they disagree. But if you disagree and you're feeling that strongly about what I'm saying, you have the internet too. You just go www.youtube.com, create your channel, or TikTok. Nowadays you have so many platforms that you can go out there and open up and share with the world what you really feel or think. There are people that feel entitled or feel like you and what you're talking about should align exactly, precisely with what they believe in their hearts. But that's not reality. That's just because, I am Ethiopian, or I'm a woman, or I'm Black, or, because there are so many groups that you can classify me in, right? So just because I'm that, I have to have the same kind of mentality as you. It doesn't work like that. The same way it won't work in your household just because you have a brother or a sister. You won't have the same kind of thought process. You'll have different ideology, different morals, different principles, and that's how it goes. So I always try to remind myself, if someone decides to come to my comment section and tell me that they disagree about a certain thing, I try to remind myself that they have a right to have that opinion, but I also have a right to voice what I believe to be true. And then if they feel that strongly about a certain topic, then they have every right to go out there and speak about that the same way I do with my platform. When you have a platform, you should always expect to get negative feedback. There is constructive criticism and there's also hateful comment. Let's call it for what it is. And you can usually tell the difference between the two. Even if you don't like hearing a negative comment, you're still like, are they right? If they're right, you're like, okay. Like, as much as it kind of, pushes you a little bit, it's still like in the right direction. It's not really making you fall down, right? But the second one, the trolls, as they call them, they are not many, by the way. I know we always talk about the negative people online, but they're not the majority. I would say 95% of the time for me are positive people. Even if they're telling you something, it's to help you change. Their tone, you can understand from their tone and what exactly they're telling you. Like, if you fix this, I know you're doing this, but have you thought about this though? Those kind of people. But then the second ones, the troll ones, you can tell by the way they're speaking to you. It's like to provoke you in a way or to get some kind of response from you, because nobody usually talks to you like that in person. Who comes to you and tells you, by the way, go unalive yourself? Does somebody say that to you in front of your face? Usually they don't do that, right? They use the platform or like the fact that nobody can see who they are to their advantage to say whatever they want to say about you. But for me personally, I think I would say the first comment that caught me off guard was a negative one, because I don't know how it can be constructive, but maybe you can tell me if it was. This person came to my page and then wrote, "Oh my God, please work on your accent." And I'm like, it was so confusing to me. I'm talking about Africa. Obviously, I'm Ethiopian. Obviously, there's going to be an accent. Obviously, my first language is Amharic. So I'm like, okay, if it's like, because I get questions like, where are you from? Your accent is different. Or your accent is like Indian. I don't know why they say that, but like some people tell me that. And then you see that and you're like, oh, okay, like it's fine. But when somebody's telling you, go and fix your accent, I'm like, in the first place, why would you feel entitled enough to tell me that I need to work on something? Did I say it's an issue? Did you understand me? For me, what's really important, until that comment at least, was like, am I making sense to you? Because especially, I'm talking to Africans, right? My channel is a Pan-African channel who just talks about African issues, Black issues, anything that has to do with us, unity or injustice, right? So obviously, I need to communicate with you for me to say that to you. And the thing is, I can't talk to you in Amharic, Justus. If I come here and start talking in Amharic, you won't understand me, because I'm trying to talk to everyone. And even sometimes I feel bad that I don't speak French because of the Sahel region. Like, I would want to sit down and talk to someone from Mali or, Burkina Faso or those countries. But unfortunately, there's that language barrier. Until maybe Swahili becomes one language that we all can speak with and we can all communicate as Africans, we need to use what we have. And for me right now, this is what I got. So when he came and told me that, I was shocked, because I'm like, why are you telling me this? One. Secondly, did you understand me? That's the most important thing for me. If you didn't understand me, maybe we can work on more grammar things, but that was not what he was trying to say. He was trying to make me feel bad, which I would say for like a few weeks it worked, because I started really watching my videos and thinking like, what is it? How can I fix this? Is there something I can fix? But then I realized it doesn't matter. And he's just being a troll, and I should focus on actually communicating what I'm trying to communicate with my people. And that's unity, and that is creating awareness and reclaiming our narrative. So yeah, that's one comment I remember really taking me for a trip. At least for a few weeks, I was thinking about what accent like I need to imitate for people to understand. But then, yeah, I have given up on that because clearly, if you're learning a second language or a third language, it's expected. After posting my first video, it took a while till the channel picked up. Obviously, it's expected. There are people that post their first few videos and then they blow up, but those are the exceptions. People need to understand it doesn't work like that. You have to put in work, you have to be consistent, you have to offer some kind of value to someone. Everybody's different, everybody's interest and passion is different. So you have to find your own audience. The people that you want to bring to your channel are those that care about the same thing that you care about and the things that you want to talk about. So obviously it took, I would say, a year, even more, till I got an audience. So for like a year, I was basically talking to probably my parents and my friends because, those are the people that watch. So it took time till it picked up, but I'm not mad at it because it gives you space to grow. Whenever, whenever it takes time for you to get the things that you've been dreaming about or wanting or asking God for, there's a reason. You should always see the good in that. And for me, the good I saw in taking time for me to grow my audience is the fact that I am also growing. Like the more videos I'm posting, the more I'm practicing my craft, the more I'm getting better at communication. And I think not having a lot of eyes on you gives you the space to grow and make your mistakes. But then again, only 50 people watched, so you can fix it up tomorrow. So that is the biggest thing that I took away from that specific, taking your time to grow and slowly getting your own people. So they have to, like people that are starting out their journey, they need to understand, number one, it takes time. Number two, you have to love what you're doing. You have to be able to be your consumer as well in the beginning. So once you realize that you also like the content, you're not just producing it because it's a cool thing to do, or you just want to blow up, or you're just trying to get money, you have to know that you are offering value. These people that are coming, they want value. They want something in return while they're giving you their time. So the value you're offering can be through making them laugh or giving them information that they wouldn't want to go through, dig up articles and find exactly what they're looking for, or you are offering them how to do certain things that they just want to see an illustration form of it so that they can, do it themselves. So if you're offering some sort of value, someone out there is going to watch it. And also don't forget personality. People try to copy somebody else's personality because they see it working, but people can see through it. When you're doing that, it just doesn't feel right. For example, for me personally, I can tell you a story of how I went through the struggle of trying to copy, right? So for me, I see other people that are discussing or talking about, let's say, Africa or current affairs, how they come and they sit and they're talking. And like, I really wanted to be like them because they're so elegant and poised, and just, that's something I've always wanted to emulate. But unfortunately, I was not created like that. I talk with my hands. I'm very animated. My face just does the weirdest thing, especially when I'm editing. I can see myself like just making the craziest faces and I'm like, oh my God. But at first I struggled. I wanted to change that so bad. But when I tried, I looked like a robot. I was not successful in looking like those people, the people I see on the news. I just couldn't copy them because that's not how I am, how I'm programmed. The way I am is just animated and talk with my hands, as I said, and make faces. So if that's the case, even though it took me time, when I realized that's actually not a bad thing, I can use that to my advantage. If someone is coming to you and telling the news in a way that, traditional media is doing it, they'll go to the traditional media. They don't need me. But me, what I bring to this table is myself, like my animation and the way I see things and the way naturally I respond to things. People, surprisingly, they relate to that or they like it. And they've told me, I've heard people tell me they like how I do the news or how I talk about it. And it's always shocking to me because that's the one thing I tried to change about myself. And I'm so glad I didn't try or continue copying that and just ended up looking like a robot. But now I have my own way of delivery, and that's, I think, has been working for me thus far. When you really are being genuine about the things that you care about, it's so much easier, and it doesn't even feel like a job. It just feels like fulfilling your purpose on earth. That's how it feels like when you're doing what you are made to do, the things that you care about. So for me, I use YouTube, as I said, and TikTok, and the topics that I talk about are Black issues, African issues, which, you know them. I mean, I don't need to tell you. Let's say corruption, let's say politics, let's say puppet leaders, let's say poverty, let's say lies of the mainstream media, or how Western, nations use our resources or use us or tell us lies or make us fight. I just usually talk about the invisible hand behind the scenes that is making our lives a living hell, and we don't know it. By us I mean Africans. Each country have their own issues. I thought tribalism was just in Ethiopia. No, I see it everywhere. And we're here fighting one another, or fighting with our brother or our neighbors, but we don't know what is going on behind the scenes, who is pulling the strings to make us fight, while they are swooping in and using our resources or using our brains and using what we have to offer, but then end up they tell us that it was our fault. They tell us that it's us, just Africans, we're created for this misery, even though that's not true. God actually loved us so much. He gave us all these natural resources. He gave us the youth. He gave us our brains. Like, have you seen our people? But by design, some people want us to turn on each other, and then they don't want us to grow. They don't want us to be in that powerful position that we were meant for. So I just discuss about that because I believe it will help us understand what the real issue is, and we stop the hate with one another, and we unite and actually fight against neocolonization, fight against drought, fight against corrupt leaders. Those are the things that we need to focus on, not on one another, not on turning on your brother. So those are the topics that I focus on and talk about and discuss. And I think it's a really important thing that we need to talk about right now because it matters. Of course, when you make a video or any kind of content on any platform, you would like people to watch it, as many people as possible. That is what you want. But that's not always the case. And also, that's not the main thing. The main thing is, what value did they get from what they watched? Doesn't matter how many people watched it, how much of an impact did it make on those people that watched it. For example, for me, I get emails on videos that got way less views than others, right? But then the email probably, for example, I'll give you one example. I got an email from a dad. He told me he first heard of me and about me through his daughter. And he said, when I was driving her, she was listening to your videos, and I listened and I was proud of what you were saying, and I was interested, and I wanted to say, well done, continue do your thing, and we support you. And this guy took a time out of his day to write me that email and tell me how I impacted his daughter and how he got to know me. That was really, empowering. That really helped me understand why I do what I do. Or someone, and this is also for some reason a father showing his daughter my video, and I happened to be there, and he literally came and showed me. And I was so shocked. Like, this doesn't usually happen, and I'm new to this, right? People may be recognizing you, but it does something to me because it's a father showing his daughter my video, or a daughter showing her father my video, which tells me that I am making an impact on the younger generation, one way or the other. And that is quite literally why I started this. It's for this young generation and the one that is coming, because I thought where we're headed is not looking good. So we need to talk about this. We need to tell, the young ones, be careful, be aware, make sure that you investigate anything and everything that comes your way. Just don't take it upon yourself or be influenced by the evil of this world, basically. So when I hear parents telling their children that they should watch me, it gives me this sense of accomplishment, because that's quite literally why I started. And you hear people, I get emails of people also telling me that they are inspired by me. And that one, it's still hard to digest, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm like, wait, I'm not there yet, relax. But it still means something to me, because it's nice to hear that someone else behind the camera is watching you. Because when I'm filming, I'm all alone. I'm just filming and talking and I'm posting, and then that's it, right? But you can only know the impact you're having when you get feedback. And that feedback is honestly what is more valuable than any kind of, millions of views that you can get. But I would say a few of the videos that spoke to people, I guess, because, they got views, are, for example, I'll give you one example that means a lot to me because of the connection to Kenya and Ethiopia. I did a video about Kenya rejecting the US at one point for what they were trying to push on Ethiopia. They were basically trying to get Kenya to, slap Ethiopia in a way, but it's more deeper than that, but, just for this conversation. So I talked about it, but I also was saying thank you to Kenyans and, the government at that point for saying, no, that's our neighboring country. And it was just I felt something in my heart, and I talked about it. And surprisingly, people related, not just Ethiopians, but also Kenyans. And that video, I feel like, brought us closer, because there were conversations between Kenyans and Ethiopians, and the comment section, and even Ethiopians that didn't know that Kenya did this for Ethiopians, they started talking about it, they started sharing it, saying thank you, tomorrow we got you, stuff like that. And that made me so happy, because this is what I want, like unity. Of course, it's not always the case, and you other videos might make you feel like, okay, guys, relax in the comment sections. But this is one of the videos that make me really happy, because the comment section is just beautiful. It's like brothers and sisters coming together in kumbaya. So I love that. And most of the videos I see going viral or getting more views are those of our leaders' speech, when they are standing up against injustice or, the colonial the previous colonial masters, or right now they would like to call themselves powerful nations. But then when, an African country or a leader gets up and says, no, we're not going to accept this, we're not going to allow this to happen to our people respond to those kind of videos, because they feel heard. They feel like they have someone up there in that office standing up for them, looking out for them, and speaking up for us on our behalf. And I understand the sentiment, because we've always wanted someone that represents us. Unfortunately, it's not always the case, but when we do find those gems, we tend to really be happy and proud, and just be happy, and that translates into views, I think. It's always nice to, hear feedback from people, or to hear well done. But it felt almost, unbelievable when I was picked to be part of the YouTube Black 2023 class. It was an overwhelming feeling, because it's like, yeah, we see you and you're doing a great job and you also, you are a voice that we respect, and we want to appreciate you. That was a great moment, I would say, because it's like a clap. Well done. We see your efforts, and that was really, really wonderful, and it was quite an experience, especially connecting with other creators, because there were Black creators from all over the world, and us coming together and actually having a conversation like with South Africa and Nigeria and Ghanaian, which I would have never been able to have that conversation with, but because of this program I was able to connect with many people and make friends with many people across. It's definitely one of my highlights of this year for me. 2023 has been made because of that. I love it. But yeah, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that YouTube gave me. Through the YouTube Black, I was able to experience Cape Town, for example. That's one. I was also able to visit State House of Kenya and walk on the red carpets like I'm a world leader, right? And it was a good experience for me to have, because now I believe that if we put our mind into doing something, we can do it. It might take time. We might need to be patient. As I said earlier, when I first started this journey for like 2 years or a year and a half, there were not many people that were interested or that even found my videos, and they were not engaging, right? But after that, it just became even more easier, and the opportunities were more frequent, and that assures me and tells me that even though I'm struggling with other things right now, or you might be struggling in different areas, as long as you work hard at it and you push through, like what is meant for you will be for you, and you might find yourself in a place where you never thought you would be. I've never been in Ethiopian State House, by the way, maybe one day. But now I'm hopeful. I feel like it's possible. You should never limit yourself, even though we might find it hard right now in our situation and our circumstance to envision ourselves at a certain place. It is possible. We should never, ever limit ourselves, because God is the best planner. And sometimes when we think we've dreamed so big, it's like very little for Him. But it has to be in the right path. It has to be yours. And I want to touch on comparing yourself with others. I think that's really extremely important, because when you're comparing yourself with others today, you're comparing yourself with theirs today, but they've worked 10 years in advance to get there, or you don't know what work they have put in, you don't know the struggles that they have been going through. So it's so unfair to you and to yourself to compare yourself with others and their, what they were able to do. You always have to compare yourself with your own self. That's the best thing that I've really come across, like when it comes to advice. You just compare yourself to yourself from yesterday, a year before, 10 years before, and then you realize you've come so far, and that will encourage you. And now for me, I'm like, I look at my 2023, what I was able to do, and even the things that I never dreamed of, like it's there, and like I'm living it. It is it gives me hope. It pushes me to dream even bigger for 2024. So I just want to say that do not compare yourself with other people. If you're looking at others, look at them for inspiration, for you to see like how far people can go if they've really worked hard, or if they're talented, skilled. Just use that as a boost, not to tear yourself down, because sometimes we can be our worst critics, and that's not a good thing. And I can say that because I know. I want better for our people, and I want to see in my lifetime Africans coming together and building our continent instead of immigrating or putting ourselves at risk our own lives at risk in order to cross a desert or to cross a sea to, find greener pastures. I think if I can convince just a few people to stay in their homeland and work where they are, build whatever they can, even if it's going to be a struggle, even if it's going to take time, if I can convince a few people to build where they are and not risk their lives fleeing their situation, I will feel accomplished, because I have had to report in so many horror stories of our people that, lost their lives while they are on a journey to go somewhere else because they thought the situation would be better somewhere else. Their lives were cut short. Even the ones that made it out of their country, and let's say they're working in, a Middle Eastern country or Europe, I have reported so many stories of how our people are being treated and how they are losing their lives. It makes me so, so sad, and it hurts me deeply to see those stories. It makes me wonder, what if that person stayed where they are, even if it was hard, even if we understand there's so much unemployment. People are suffering because the resources are being used elsewhere. The money is filling in a few people's pockets, and people don't see, especially the younger generation, don't seem to understand. They don't think that there is going to be, a light after that tunnel, right? Like, they're not seeing that. They don't see any positive outcome from them living or working in their own countries. And we understand why they feel that way, because of the situation and the circumstance that most African countries are in right now. But someone has to sacrifice. Someone has to say, it ends with me. I will do what needs to be done today so that tomorrow it's not going to be my child, it's not going to be my grandchild that has to risk their life to leave this situation. Someone has to stand up. And if I can convince my generation that we should and we could do that for the next generation, I think honestly, my job is done. I'll be very happy, very, very fulfilled in my life on this earth. And yeah, that is the one thing that I would love to see happen, which is our people not losing their lives on the way to greener pastures.